Okay, so I thought it would be a really interesting setup of me showing you the setup of this setup before the video begins. So without further ado, let's do a time lapse. The background is just missing a little bit of a light, so we're just gonna flashlight it. One sec. Oh, there we go. See, it just needs that little bit of a spice in that back corner. You know, see what I'm saying? Feeling what I'm feeling? What's up, guys? In today's video, we're gonna be talking about drone shots, specifically fly-throughs. Now, for those of you who are not aware of these things, get ready for your brain to be melted. So my fascination of drone fly-throughs really kicked off when watching this short film called Muscle Up, which is a Vimeo staff pick that came out like last year or the year before. And basically, this guy just flew his drone through a bunch of tiny things through Venice Beach. Now, what I loved about this was it just showed me that you can make a full short film from a completely different perspective utilizing a tool that most filmmakers have on their toolkits. Now, this fascination of flying drones through things with things has become a cinematic sensation with the accessibility of drones like the DJI Mavic Air. Now, the cool thing about this is the fact that this fascination and this interest and this skill has translated over to other amazing filmmakers. I've been super jealous of them, and I've been wanting to capture some myself. So recently, when I was in Mexico, I captured this. I want to talk about how you guys can capture something similar safely, and at the end of the day, it's really not that safe, so I don't recommend you doing this if you are a bad drone operator. But with that being said, let's learn the ropes. I'll teach you guys the basics of how to capture a shot that's similar to this, in a few quick couple steps. The first things first is the drone. Now, you're gonna need a smaller drone for this. So for those of you who are flying like a Phantom or an Inspire or even like a Mavic Pro 2 or any of the Mavic lines that are more prosumer, I would say that you just can't do this unless you're flying it through like really big things like archways and whatnot. But if you're wanting to capture like those really cool like things, your drone has to be small because actually it has to be able to fit through smaller areas. Now, for those of you who are wanting to give this a shot with your bigger drones, by all means, go for it. It's just a lot more dangerous, and I don't know, danger is not cool when it gets to a certain level. So the next thing is, once you have your drone, so the one that I've been using is the Mavic Air. I freaking love this thing. This is just like the best drone that I have ever flown. It's so good, it's cheap, it's small, and you know, it's my travel companion. I've had this for a year and it hasn't crashed or damaged or anything. You're good, buddy. You're really good. So the next thing is you have your drone. Now that's the first part, obviously having a drone the size that it needs to be. But the second thing that's incredibly valuable is your location. Now there's a couple variables that I had in mind when filming in Mexico. The first thing was I scouted this area out a few times before actually putting this up and flying it. I looked at it, made sure there was the right distance between, let's say, the poles that I could fly this thing through, and that I was shooting it at an area that wasn't filled with people. You don't want to be flying your drone through people, over top of people, because, you know, there's blades, they're loud, it could cause a lot of damage. So I scouted out my location and made sure that it was not filled with people or it could hurt anyone. The next thing is when you're doing your scout, looking through your location, you want to make sure that what you're flying it through is a safe distance for your drone, and obviously it doesn't damage the thing that you're flying it through. So for example, my drone here, what I make sure is that there is enough distance on either side so that it can safely fly through it. Just think of maybe, let's say, double the wingspan on either side. That way, if let's say it gets windy, you lose reception, whatever, your drone can kind of sway a little bit and it's not gonna bang into anything. So that's just something that I do, and what sometimes I'll do if I'm shooting in a location that I can, I'll do like a little test flight without actually flying it, and I'll just sort of like coast it through like that to make sure that it can fly. If this is your first time doing like a fly through, to do it safely, just kind of pretend it's like a little dinky car, or I guess a dinky helicopter. Now the next thing is, once you've kind of checked off all your boxes, no one's gonna get hurt, the location seems like a safe thing for your drone, make sure the shot will actually look cool. So you have to scout out, well, is there enough things for it to fly through? Is it tight enough? Is there depth? And then what is the shot gonna start on, and what is the shot going to end on? Now I was able to check all those boxes with this shot. At the beginning of the shot, I knew it was going to show off the beach, and at the end of the shot, it was going to go through some poles to finish it off. So I knew my beginning point, I knew my ending point, and I knew the middle point was the coolest. That's the second trick. Make sure your start looks pretty dope, but then your middle is like freaking dynamite. Like that's like the coolest part. It's flying through things and all of that. So your middle duration is sort of the big highlight of your shot. Next, we're getting very close to the end of this. Once you have your drone, now it's time to freaking fly it. Get it up in the air and do a couple test flights. What I like to do is actually get it in the air and make sure that everything is all good. You know, if let's say it's a little windy, maybe your controller's off, don't do it. Like, I made sure that the weather conditions were fine before I put this up in the sky. You also don't want to make sure it's too dark. I would say the little thing that I don't like about my shot is the fact that I shot it at a darker time. I wish it was a little bit brighter, but that was okay because I shot at a time that no one was on the beach, so it was a safe thing to do. So fly it up, test the air, just do like a quick little fly around, make sure everything is good. Now the next thing that you want to do with this effect is fly it through the tight quarters and do it very slowly. Try it out at a first step, especially if this is your first time flying through anything, you want to do it at a safe speed. So actually what I did with this shot is I flew it forward. I knew I'd have better controls if I knew where my drone was going rather than flying it blindly. So I actually put the whole shot in reverse at the very end. So it actually looked like this. Now this way I could operate, I could see where things were going, and I knew that if I had to like do micro adjustments, I knew where it was going. So as I flew my drone forward, I did it at a slower speed because I also knew I could speed it up. So then when I flew it forward, I was able to see where I was going through, I was able to direct its path, and this is where things get dangerous. My drone, just a bit of side story, a bit of like a backstory, while I was flying it, I was sitting in those little beach chairs, and the drone literally flew right past my head at about this close of a radius. That's why you don't want people in the shot, because if it was any closer, eyeballs, and so fly it at about maybe quarter speed, so not super duper fast, because you can always speed this stuff in post, especially if there's not a lot of like natural elements like people walking around or trees rustling in the shot. So I flew it forward at about quarter speed, flew it through these little things, and then right when I was getting to a certain point, I was able to launch it up. Now, here's something that is a little bit risky for me to share with you, but I believe this is how you make these shots the most dynamic. Take what you will, don't say that I told you this, in case you crash your drone, and don't blame me for anything. Be a little bit courageous. There will be times that your drone is it looks like it's getting really close to things. This is why I say practice. It looks like it's getting really close to things, but in fact, it's got a lot more distance than what you think. Since this drone is flying relatively quick, the camera lens is wider, it looks like stuff's getting closer. You're actually relatively safe. The stuff that you should worry about is the things that aren't in your field of view. If you can see it and it's coming up to the camera, chances are you can avoid it. That's how like I flew over the tree, how I flew in between these things. Like my heart was racing the whole time, but at the end of the day, I was actually at a safe distance from things. And then the final trick to put all of this into play was actually when I took it into post-production. Once I had captured my shot, flying it through things at quarter speed, I sped up the footage and put it in reverse. Now there's two reasons why I put it in reverse. My light just burnt out. I'm sorry. I put it in reverse for two reasons. The first reason is because I think drone shots just look a lot more dynamic when it's revealing stuff. So that was just personal preference. The second reason is when things are in reverse, it actually looks a lot more stable than what it looks like going forward. It's because our eyes aren't used to the way motion works in reverse, so it actually makes it feel like it has a smooth effect on it. Whenever I was putting on a warp stabilizer, it wasn't stabilizing the way I wanted it to. So actually by putting it backwards, it stabilized it the way I needed it to be without actually putting on any post stabilization. And then obviously I sped it up. I think it put it at an extra 200%. Now obviously the percent of the speed will change accordingly per project, but that's sort of the motion that I had it in. Take this with a grain of salt, but be a little bit courageous. Try different things. Take angles that look really interesting from a new perspective. That's how I was able to capture this shot. That's also how I was able to capture this shot. And overall, experimentation and playing around with new stuff is really cool. At the least part of it all, if you don't feel confident doing this with your drone, then don't do it, and just follow these people on Instagram. They're really interesting. I highly recommend taking a look at the short film Muscle Up, and I also highly recommend taking a look at Sam's work if you're wanting to get inspired from everything from drone shots to just cool cinematic sequences. And also, in the comment section below, let me know if there's any sort of drone setups that you like, or maybe I didn't say anything part of this process, something that I missed out on, and I will follow it up with another video. Thanks again. See you guys later. Keep making some great stuff. I'm going to go now keep editing. Bye. I'm serious. Video's done.